Hey, this is the second episode of Ittocs, Taco Time Talks. I'm Scotty, your host, and today we got a special guest. We're interviewing Ittocs, and he is the writer of this short story that I've been really interested in. So, why don't you go ahead and give us a little info on that story there, Ittocs? Well, thank you for having me, Scotty. It's good to be on here. Yeah, the story is called Reverse Contracts, and it's basically the idea of how the employer has an extreme monopoly over the employee. The idea basically is you would put out the job resource, whatever you would use for the resource, you would get a ratio for a percentage of what you could do. For instance, the story is about journalism, so anything related to journalism, you would have an overall ratio of what you can do, and that would account to your profit of price. So there wouldn't be oh, this job has more money than this job. It's more, what skills do you possess that can be transferred to that job, and how well do you do them in order to get paid. And then there's the mock practice, which is basically you go through the entire idea of like showing them what the job is from beginning to end. In this case, it's journalism, and yeah, the end is where he gets shot. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, that was that was a good one. The reason for this was a call for implementation, an idea that just you can take something so simple and expand on it, and it's completely practical, and you can implement it in so many ways. So would you say that's more of a government thing, or is that a self-implementation? Because it sounds more like it's above and beyond the government. It places the government bureaucracy directly within. The government's never going to do it, right? So it's a call to the people, I'd say. It's a call to the people of an understanding that they have a right and a responsibility in order to bring forward this kind of change where you no longer have a monopoly. So you're not doing a super advanced job for the same price. Like, oh, you got a promotion and they dumped a bunch of workload on you but didn't call it a promotion. You don't get any more money, you just do a fuck ton more work. It's like, how is that in any way, shape, or form, ethical or moral, right? So would this be like a automated thing, or like a system, like, just built into the system essentially? His technology is so ingrained into everything. It'd just be a basic, like, yeah, it'd probably be like the idea of technology. So you'd have an implemented automated system that would scale, for instance. So in the story for the journalism, you'd have a typing versus correction rate. How fast can you type without making a mistake? And then your average would be taken and placed on a scale of, oh, this typing speed is this price. Yeah, I agree. It's not exactly, well, something that, it's something people want. It's something that power doesn't want, if you know what I mean. Taking all that out of their hands, essentially. It'd be like, in sense, of course, because you'd have like maybe 100 different abilities on your job list, and as the employee, it is your responsibility, not the employer's responsibility. It's your responsibility to show the employer what skills you have, where your skills are at, in order to get a fair price out of your skills. So you're not being paid more than you're worth or being paid less than you're worth, and it's just it'd be a complete global or like national scale of this is what this is worth. Yeah, I know that's something you can't really expect someone else to do, right? Yet it's so ingrained in our society for it. Like, someone who has absolutely no idea how the actual job is done is like writing protocol on how the job's done, which doesn't allow for first of all any internal expansion within that industry. Yeah, the government's not interested in it because it doesn't benefit them in any way. It essentially makes them obsolete, which is not what they want, you know what I mean? It's so important. So important, like, for instance, with the whole minimum wage thing, it's like minimum wage goes up, everything goes up to compensate. But if you have a system set based on those parameters, so it's actual like scientific parameters, you know, this product had to travel this far, takes this long to make, and that's what makes it that price, not, oh hey, a lot of people want it, so I'm going to sell it for a high price. Well, that's where you get into the idea of, for instance, things are a price based on demand, supply and demand. It shouldn't be a supply and demand. It should be a, this is worth this because it takes this to do, you know, like, doesn't have to be a supply and demand, or it shouldn't be a supply and demand. Because we have enough to make everything an infinite amount of times. So there's infinite supply. Well, again, that goes back to power, right? If someone has the power, they're not gonna give it up because that'd be stupid, right? You gotta figure out how to convince people that this is something that they can actually do. It's not something that the government's gonna do for them. It's something that they have to do themselves. So it's really hard to get people to get up and go do something, you know? Yeah, most people wouldn't. I mean, why would you? The only way you would is if you were forced to, and the problem is that nobody's forcing anyone to. It's people being content. They just don't care. Well, it definitely plays a role. Yeah, it's definitely a huge role, being content. Because if you're content, you're not going to do anything. There's no aspiration. But if you're in trouble, oh, now there's an aspiration. You want to change it because it's bad. Well, that's true. Like they say, all these jobs are going to be disappearing because of automation and all this stuff. Well, it's like, for the last, like, 30 years, we should have, ever since, like, the idea of the internet and all of our technological advancements, ever since then, we should have had this inevitable plan to put jobs that don't. There is the idea, like I said earlier, about the automated jobs and everything disappearing and all these new jobs being wiped out by automation. But it's like half the jobs we have we don't even need. They should have been automated a long time ago. Like, bureaucracy should have been automated or integrated into the actual person, because we're smart enough to do the bureaucracy ourselves. You don't need to go to school to do the bureaucracy. You just need to know the system. When you work there, you know the system, and you don't have to rely on someone else that doesn't know how it works to do the system. Well, again, it can't be helped. It's one of those things. We're fucking human, man. What do you want from us, right? We're on a bad path. We just need some help. Problem is, like Winston Churchill said, you only need good men to do nothing for evil to triumph. And it's so true. The people that are going to try and fuck you over are the ones with aspirations to fuck you over. You don't have any aspirations to not have anyone fuck you over. You're not even thinking about it. You're just going about your day doing your own thing, and then all of a sudden it's, well, government, boo. Churchill, right? Humanizing. That's one thing that's really powerful about it. Yes, it's very humanizing. It's very humanizing because it shows that anyone can do anything. And with Winston Churchill, it's a very like pushed cause to motion. And in another way, it's like for instance with Dick Cheney, it's another almost demonization of humanity. It's the idea that you can be this good, or this is the evil that can come out of men doing nothing. And it's to such an extent that it should be noticed and taken upon the public in order to make a push about it. Well, yeah, you go to the other side of the coin with that one. Like, it's humanizing it another way. It's like, humanizing it is very powerful, but demonizing it is almost as powerful, because it's like the idea of muddying the waters. Once you muddy the waters, it's the whole game's out, you know? Like, there's nothing you can really do. It's over. It's the same idea with voting and stuff like that. Like, we have online banking, which is I don't know about you, but probably a lot more risky than online voting, and yet we don't have online voting. And it's like, you could have this. It's not that hard to incorporate into the system. What's an app? Like, what does it take? Yeah, basically like an app. And even in like simple areas like your own city, instead of having to go to like city hall meetings, it just like pop up on the app for anything that was you know, or you could even present projects on it, just normal citizens, instead of having to go up to city hall and do this whole presentation thing. You could just pop it into the app, be like, oh, this would be a really cool thing for mission financial problems. Yeah, some guy could design it in his fucking basement. Like, I don't understand scale of like financial demand for such a simple thing. Like, maybe, oh, it gets expanded and the server gets huge, but like really and truly is the like, hey guys, let's audit the numbers and see what they actually fucking are. That's another thing, is you should just be able to like self-audit anything. Be like, I don't trust this thing, you know. I'm gonna go look at this. And it's like, oh, no, don't go near that. Oh, that's not your place. And it's like, well, technically it is. Like, I don't know where my tax money's going and shit like that. That would be really helpful to know. Or even like, even for that, you could have a category prioritization where you're like, I want my tax dollars to go here. So instead of having a budget for governments or government facilities, or you know, individual industries in the government, like, oh, we're gonna put $10 million into science this year, but we're not gonna we're gonna put $5 million into the school system, and we're gonna put $200 million into the military. Yeah. But then if you take the system and you have the people literally dictating themselves where they want, like, they're still paying the same amount of tax money, but they're dictating where the money goes instead of the government dictating where the money goes. They just say the whole system can't handle it, can't handle changes. We built the system so it can't handle changes. They just don't think the fucking whole system just fall apart, but it's not freaking mid-90s anymore. War of the Worlds isn't gonna send everybody fucking running out on the streets. If the fucking economy drops, everyone's just kind of gonna pick up their shit and reopen the barter system. Like, it's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Cities. Oh, for cities, for sure. Like, if you're in a main place where there's no basic infrastructure for, let's say, food production, it's all imported, it's all factorized and stuff like that, right? Instead of being like a small town area where you have farming communities and most of your businesses are home-owned, family-owned businesses, right? So in the event of a loss of economy worldwide, a small town such as a place like this probably be able to get by on the barter system because we have enough infrastructure within the city itself. Like, we have farms, we can get our own food, we have water sources, you know, we got everything we pretty much need. It's just other places that would have bigger problems, and that's again, something we really need to... Well, a lot of cities, like it's a demand thing again. Like it's like, oh, come to the city. We've got everything here. Come here, and you don't have to worry about anything else. We got great jobs. We got all this stuff. But it's like, it doesn't. Most of the stuff there doesn't create things that are sustainable, that are needed to sustain human life. They're things that are entertainment based and material items that we want, but you go to like a big city and you're not going to find a farm, you know? It's not just that, it's you also have to take into account how clustered population density is compared to landmass. Like, screw the concept of countries and boundaries. If we had to, North America is big enough. Like, 32 million, 300 million, like, and we occupy like 20% of the landmass in Canada, and they occupy like 80% of the landmass in America. But it's so clustered, you have cities that have more population than the entirety of Canada, which is kind of a little, I think, over the top. And you get other countries like India, where it's like you've got like 1 million people in 14 square blocks. And then the overall, like, the world landmass. Like, oh yeah, you look at the other side of the world, there's, what, 2/3 of the population of the world overall, because we're such a young... We're a young country, exactly. We're so young. The West is so young, and yet we think, oh, we're the best. We're the best. We're the new world. We left you guys behind. We don't need you anymore, you know? Not like we didn't take all the things you learned, or we learned from you. Well, it's the respect thing. It's the way we, well, not necessarily we, but, you know, Western civilization in general treats other civilizations, other countries, despite the fact that we're so young. We're, as Joe Rogan put it, we're like 3 people old. Some of these countries are 100 people old, 150 people old, maybe more. Like, you know, so to have this non-respect and this like we're the best kind of thing, despite the fact that we're the newest. It's just we're the newest, we're the best, even though we've clearly proven that we went from being pretty good to being but yeah. But how true is it? Well, at the end of the day, it could all be propaganda. You never know. I don't travel. My buddy does, but I don't really travel. So I've never been to the States. I don't have a passport. I'm like... It's all vicarious, man, but it's what you hear that makes you wonder. Because that's what's important. It's not whether it's true or not. It's the fact that it's being presented. And it's like things that aren't being presented. It's like, huh? What? That's odd. You know? That's why I'm here. Like, that's what I wanted. To present what's possible. To show people that it's not... It doesn't take a miracle. It's not a miracle to come up with these. Everyone comes up with ideas like this every day. It's the problem that we're in a society that doesn't enable us to implement it in a proper way. And that's why you wrote this, right? Yeah, that's exactly why I did what I did. Because it's a call to awareness, to make people think that maybe there is another way, and it's not that hard to change it. We don't have to dismantle the entire thing. We just have to move certain things around, move around the chessboard a little bit. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't consider myself a savant or any fucking shit like that. I'm just going with the flow, and sometimes the flow just hits. Student Film Festival, writing, going through the process of making a movie or something like that is a lot more, the things you have to do are more pronounced as opposed to just simply writing a story, you know? It's like the idea of theoretical versus actual practice. Yeah, film really helps because I have a background in film, and just going through the process in film is really nice because you get to see how things play out as opposed to just writing something down and trying to imagine it. You miss things, you know. All it takes is normal people. You just got to get the information out there, get people to act, to realize that the government's not going to do it for them. They got to do it themselves, and the government's going to do everything to stop them from doing it. So it's like, if I had the money to start a company, that's what I would do as far as this story is concerned. I'd make that idea of that's how I would pay my employees, and that's how I would work out business deals with companies that say, no, 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 I'm not going to pay what your price is. I'm going to figure out if your price is correct, and then I'm going to pay it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you just doing it because it is. And that's the whole idea of, like, inflation. There shouldn't be inflation. There should be inflation in things that are like, oh man, there was a giant storm this year, and this infrastructure got wiped out, so now it's going to be in a scarce quantity. That's why the price went up. That's reasonable, you know? That makes sense. Not, we decided that we're not going to make enough factories to produce it to make sure that the demand is high, and then we're going to get enough money to build a ton of factories and then just produce a ton of it, and then everyone's just always going to want it. Well, we've just kind of accepted it, right? Which is the kind of sad fact. We just kind of accepted it. Somewhere down the line, we just said, fuck it, it's not worth it. It's just, wait till it all falls down, we'll build it all back up again. You know what I mean? Well, it's also corruption, like knowing about it. We know about corruption. We know it happens. We do nothing about it. We can't do anything about it. Oh, they created laws to stop us from doing about it. But why don't we just go back and say, well, hold on here. This don't make sense. We want it this way. It don't matter what the law is if the society wants to overwrite the law. I mean, you're not going to live in a society that has ridiculous laws, like a Big Brother kind of society, which is, you know, Orwell society kind of idea. We're not in a police state, you know, like. All right, well, we gotta wrap it up here, but thanks for that, and I'll leave the link for the short story in the description, and thanks for coming on today, Ittocs. Thanks for having me. It was a good time. Ittocs. Peace out. Scotty, signing off. Peace out.